So this page will just kind of show you what happens to the mean, median, standard deviation, IQR, those four specific parts of the summary statistics when we take data and we transform it, i.e. add or subtract or multiply, divide all the data values by a number. So look at number 1. It says make a dot plot of the following data, this 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to put those in the calculator and find the average, the standard deviation, the median, and the IQR. So that little axis off to the side there, let's make a dot plot. 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. What shape does this distribution have? Skewed right. Okay, keep that in mind. And here's what I want you to do. As fast as you can, I want you to go to list 1, stat edit in your calculator, and I want you to clear out any values that are hanging out in list 1, and I want you to enter in 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. All 6 data values entered into list 1. And then you're going to navigate to the screen that tells you all of these 4 values here, or most of them. So hit Stat, Calculate, one variable statistics, enter, enter, enter. Again, that's Stat, Calc, 1, enter, enter, enter. I want you to write down that the mean, the X bar, the average of these 6 data values is 1. The standard deviation, we're going to actually assume that these 6 data values are the entire population. So instead of writing 1.26, I want you to write 1.15 for standard deviation. Oops. Arrow down until you see the median, which is 0.5. And then we have everything we need on the screen to calculate IQR, which is going to be Q3 minus Q1, 2 minus 0 is 2. So I'm going to call those the original data values, the original summary statistics. We're going to see what happens on number 2 if we take all 6 of those numbers and we add 5 to them. It wants us to graph that new dot plot, enter them in the calculator, and figure out the mean, standard deviation, median, and IQR. So if I add 5 to all of these 6 numbers, that would give me 5, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8. Did the shape of the distribution change, or is it still right skewed? It's not only still right skewed, it has the exact same shape. Everything just got scooted over to the right by 5 units. Let's see how that affects the mean, median, standard deviation, and IQR. Stat edit. I'm not even going to bother clearing it out. I'm just going to type right over my old entries. So 5, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8. Stat, calc, one variable statistics, enter, enter, enter. The new, the new mean is 6. So what happened from the original mean to the new mean? When I added 5 to each data value, it went up by 5. Let's talk about the other measure of center, which is the median. I want you to arrow down, look at the median. It went up to 5.5. From 0.5 to 5.5, it also increased by 5. Let's see if the standard deviation and IQR also went up by 5. Standard deviation, and we're using the second one. Still 1.5. And the IQR, if I arrow down and do my subtraction, 7 minus 5 is 2, so the IQR did not change. Number 3 is going to have us sum all of that up. The shape did not change, stayed the same. Measures of center, that would be mean and median. How did those change when we added or subtracted a constant? So if you add 5, then your measures of center will increase by 5. If I said take all the numbers and subtract 8, then your median and mean would decrease by 8. So so they act in the same way. Let's just put increased by 5. Whatever you're adding or subtracting to every single data value will get added or subtracted to measures of center. Variability, however, stayed the same. Variability is that standard deviation and IQR stayed the same. All right, now what we're going to do, so we covered our addition and subtraction rules. Let's try doubling all of the values from number 1. So those original ones at the top of the page, 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's double them. A different way of saying that is multiply them by 2. So let's graph that dot plot. 0 times 2 is still 0. 0, 0. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And if I double that last value, it's 6. Did the shape change? Some people are going to say yes because it's more spread out, but I'm talking about shape. Did it change? No, it's still right skewed. The more spread out is going to be variability that we're going to see change here. All right, so stat, edit, 0, 0, 0, 2, 4, 6. From the top of the page, the mean was 1, and when I doubled everything, the new mean is 2. So it doubled. The median was half, and now it's 1 whole, so it doubled. The standard deviation, the second one on the screen there, is 2.30. Well, it was 1.15, so that doubled. And I'm arrowing down, and the IQR is now 4 minus 0, which is 4. That also doubled. Because I could have just told you these rules and you could have just written them down and we could already be working on the homework, but this will help it stick in your brain. We're exploring what's happening. So if you multiply or divide, and I only showed you one tiny little example here, but if you were to divide everything by 7, all of these summary statistics will get divided by 7 as well. So it works with multiplication or division. The shape stayed the same. The center, the values of the median and mean doubled. And the measures of variability, which are the standard deviation and IQR, also doubled. And just ignore where it says read page blah blah blah. I meant to erase that. Okay, lastly, transform each of the original values into a z-score. Let's see what standardizing all of these values will do to the graph, the mean, median, standard deviation, and IQR. So here's what I want to do. Okay, I'm going to stay really organized down here at the bottom of the page. I'm going to find the z-score for 0. That would be the first data value at the top of the page. The value is 0. What I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract this original mean, and I'm going to divide by this original standard deviation. Okay, so I'm taking the data value of 0. Listen to how I say this. I am standardizing it. I'm finding its z-score on the calculator, of course. Negative 0.87 is what we're going to go with, which means that that value is about 0.87 standard deviations below the mean. Now, I don't need to sit there and do that for the next 0 and the next 0. Those will have the same z-score. Now I'm going to find the z-score for the data value of 1. Subtracting the original mean, dividing by the original standard deviation. Well, that numerator is 0. And 0 divided by anything is 0. So the z-score for 1, the data value of 1 is 0, which means it's 0 standard deviations away from the mean. In other words, it is the mean. You can look back up here and see, oh yeah, the mean is 1. 1 is 0 away from that. Okay, next, 2. Let's find the z-score for the data value of 2. 2 minus 1 over 1.5. Oh, excuse me, 1.15. I got positive 0.87 this time, which means it's about 0.87 standard deviations above the mean. And lastly, at the top of the page, that very last data value is 3. When we standardize that, we get positive 1.74. So here's what I want you to do. Sure. Absolutely. So to get this fraction template so that you don't have to worry about parentheses and order of operations, hit alpha y equals. That's the green button, and then y equals. Enter, and you've got your fraction template. Great question. Let's make a dot plot. Now we have 4 numbers, but remember that this negative 0.87, there's going to be a stack of 3 of those. So not quite to negative 1, we've got a stack of 3 of those. Then we have a dot at 0, and we have a dot at 0.87, and a dot at 1.74. Interesting. From the very top of your page to right here, did the shape change at all? It sure didn't. So, on a test question, if it says the original data is left skewed, and you standardize everything, what will the shape of the new one be? It's still going to be left skewed, okay? The mean. Let's find out. Stat. Edit. Negative 0.87, negative 0.87, negative 0.87, 0, 0.87, 1.74. This will lead us into our next lesson. When you take any data set and you standardize every single one of those numbers, your mean will always end up being 0. Your standard deviation will always, now because we kind of rounded right here, okay, your standard deviation will always be 1. Every single time for standardized schools. Standardized data. Z-scores. Sorry, that was really ugly the way I wrote it there, but it says that's always going to be true for standardized data. Now here is the critical thinking that I want you to do at the very end of the note today. Okay? Yes, we plugged in and we found these values. How in the world did we end up with a median of negative 0.435? Well, the calculator told us that's what it was. But you should actually be able to tell me what that is without the use of your calculator, believe it or not. You can calculate the new median. Based on what we learned on this page, listen really closely. 3 questions. Is median a measure of center or variability? Center, okay? Are measures of center affected by addition and subtraction? Yes. Are measures of center affected by multiplication and division? Okay, so listen really closely. You could have actually figured this out by taking the original median and subtracting 1 and dividing by 1.15. And you would have ended up with negative 0.435. Let me prove it to you. Grab your calculator. Take the original median. Open a fraction template. Take that original median, and since it's affected by subtraction and addition, we're going to do the same thing we did at the bottom of the page when we standardize, which is subtract the original mean, divide by the original standard deviation, because it's also affected by division, and sure enough, that's how that new median is calculated. Okay, let's not even go to the back to the other screen. Watch, take the original IQR, get a fraction template ready to go. The original IQR, that's a measure of variability. Is that affected by addition and subtraction? No, so don't subtract 1 from it. Ignore that. Don't subtract 1 because measures of variability are not affected by addition and subtraction. But they are affected by division, so divide by 1.15, just the same way we did at the bottom of the page. And this should be your new IQR, 1.74. And if you go back to that page that has all of that on there, here's what's really cool. You can justify that the new IQR, 0.87 minus a negative 0.87, it's not 0, it's 1.74. And that is going to do it.